despite the fact my etymology is like absolutely terrible. I've been wrong about like every single thing I've ever said about even stuff that I know. After the podcast will end, I'll like smack my head and go, what the hell? Why did I say that? Yeah,
Oh,
I
I've
think
had a few of
bugs.
those moments too. See, I just edit them
Yeah.
out when I say them.
But you leave mine. I noticed that. By the way, listeners, Christopher edits this, and I'll be like, "Hey,
Too much energy.
Good evening, listeners, and welcome back to Too Much Energon, the weekly podcast where we review every episode of Beast Wars ever in production order, starting from the beginning. I am one of your hosts, Christopher Siege.
I am one of your hosts, NeoCal."
What's going on, Cal?
Arguing with people on the internet.
As you do.
Yeah, as one does.
As one does.
And
You mean the internet isn't a place for civil discourse where people can share their ideas and opinions and beliefs freely with one another in a diplomatic and understanding fashion?
and engage and teaching and understanding of new topics?
You mean that isn't what the internet is?
Unfortunately, no, because humans are tribal monkeys that hate each other. We've actually evolved to like chimp smash other tribes, and boy does that show on the internet.
Yes. It also shows in the show that we review on this podcast as well.
It does. They're not that different.
No.
As I was watching this, I was like, man, I think there's just as much infighting with the two groups on Beast Wars as they actually fight each other.
Yeah.
Maybe more.
Yeah, and so much so that it ends up kind of driving the plot. It ends up becoming the inciting incident of this episode that kind of gets the ball rolling on the plot. This week's episode,
on both sides.
Yeah. This week's episode is called A Better Mousetrap. It is the 9th episode in production order, and holy fucking shit, it is also the 9th episode in US broadcast order.
And Canadian broadcast order?
I don't remember. I am far too tired. I had mentioned this in the outtake to Cal, but I am so tired. We are at the time of recording now. It is currently about 8:30 p.m. I have been awake since about 3 a.m. I got to work at 5:26 a.m. and I left work at 5:48 p.m.
And got paid that sweet overtime.
Yes. Typically, as I've mentioned in previous podcasts, I work at a grocery store. Typically in the grocery business, like if you put in extra time, what they'll do is be like, oh, you stayed for an extra like half hour or an hour. At the end of the week, you can leave an hour early. Things like that. Just like trading time.
Yeah.
And normally, like, I do that quite a bit, and normally it's fine. But, like, when I'm at work for, like, 12 and a half hours, I'm like, it doesn't really, like, me dumping 12 and a half hours out of one day into work, and then, like, it's like, oh, like, next week you can leave 4 hours early one day. It's like, that's cool and all, but, like, that doesn't really feel like 6 of one and half dozen of the other. Like,
yeah, that doesn't feel like equal.
It doesn't feel. Yeah, it doesn't feel like an even trade. So
I'll just take that money, thank you.
Yeah. So my boss asked me what I wanted to do, and I'm like, given the circumstances, I think I'll just take time and a half.
Yeah, turn that 4 extra hours into 6 hours.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, needless to say, I am incredibly tired. So I'm fair warning for the listeners, I'm not going to be on my A game tonight.
You have to be on your A game every day.
Damn it. All right, well, I guess the podcast's over then.
Have a good night, people.
This has been Too Much Energon. We'll be back next week with
The cat came back.
No, I listened to some of my audio just before we started recording this, so I already know going into this that I sound pretty rough. So apologies in advance, but it's been a day, guys. It's been a day.
I learned in my Serving It Right and my Superhost training that it resonates with a customer or a patron much more positively if you say, so thank you for waiting, or thank you for putting up with this, rather than apologizing for any incompetence. So listeners, thank you for understanding Christopher's plight.
I was just about to ask, so did I do the right thing or the wrong thing?
I don't even remember. What did I do? It's
what is
a
this?
little
Where
hard
are
to
we?
believe. What day is it? Who are you?
What year is it?
Where is she?
Rachel.
Rachel, I'm not wearing hockey pads.
So this week on Too Much Energon, a better mousetrap, which I got to be fully honest, until about like maybe 2 hours ago, I did not know that was an idiom. And when I watched the episode, we'll get there, but later on, there's a bit where Dinobot actually references that idiom, and I was like, oh, that's kind of awkward. Okay. So I looked it up, and yes, a better mousetrap is actually an idiom. And I, for the past like 24 years of watching this show, did not know that. The idiom, a better mousetrap, comes from an I'm getting this from idioms.thefreedictionary.com. Comes from an observation attributed to Ralph Waldo Emerson in 1889. If a man write a better book, preach a better sermon, or make a better mousetrap than his neighbor, though he builds his house in the woods, the world will make a beaten path to his door.
Interesting. And so what does that kind of like mean? Pretend that I don't understand that idiom. And what does that mean?
Pretend that I don't understand 19th century poetry.
Right?
Yeah. The simple explanation is that it basically means something that improves upon an existing object or concept.
So it's interesting. Dinobot says it's to Rhinox, it seems you've made a better mousetrap. He's not only using the idiom, but he's also actually being serious because Rat Trap is trapped inside the ship.
He's trapped like a rat. It's also interesting that Dinobot is quoting 19th century Earth poetry.
When they're in, yeah.
I mean,
when they're in the future past?
Yes, the future past.
Oh, they say something else in the episode that is very much. Optimus will say sometime in this episode that when he's observing Waspinator going nuts, just flying around in circles, he must be coming down from a sugar rush. And I'm like, wait a second. Yes, 90s kids hear that from their parents all the time, but like, how do these guys know what that is? Do they have sugar, and do they know the effects?
I read a study that was done back in I think I read this in like 2007 or 2008, but apparently the whole concept of like a sugar rush is bullshit.
Oh yeah, it's bullshit. It was used to scare parents or to explain hyperactivity.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, they studied like 1,000 children, and like some of them they gave sugar, some of them they didn't give sugar, some of them they gave
Placebos, yeah. Kids
and
will act more hyper if they think that sugar is supposed to make them hyper, which is why the placebo comes in.
But yeah, sugar doesn't actually make you hyper.
No, that was one of my favorite 90s things. It's like, oh, drinking a whole glass of a big tall glass of orange juice. A-okay, kiddo. Hey, take that pixie stick out of your mouth. You'll get a sugar high.
Yeah.
And when I was a kid, I was like, oh, I fucking wish. Like energy drinks don't really affect me. Like I've never had like sugar highs. The first time I had a Red Bull, I fell asleep half an hour later, like a nap in the afternoon. Yeah, so I was like, oh, maybe it's just me. No, there's no such thing as a sugar high.
The caffeine of energy drinks does help me, but I always drink the sugar-free ones.
So
We start off with a exterior shot of the maximal ship, then the camera pans
oh
down
yeah,
to underneath the
yeah,
Axalon.
you're right. Yeah, I swear
Yeah.
I've watched this episode. Oh
And
yeah, it shows like scaffolding and like wires hanging off the Axalon over the
yeah,
edge.
which I found kind of interesting because we haven't really seen that yet.
It's shown it a little bit in little snippets here or there, but not
Mm.
this close. It has shown like wires and like kind of scaffolding underneath that kind of like little cliff that it's jutting out of, but it's never
Oh,
zoomed in like this.
yeah. Well, like I said, I'm tired. Anyway,
So
so we're in a cave now,
we're in a
and
cave, and it shows a few bugs hanging out.
well, at least a couple bugs anyway.
Oh, sorry, no, it's not a few bugs.
Or
It's
actually,
pterosaur, black arachnia, and waspinator, and they're
yeah,
all in their beast mode.
Black Arachnia is back.
Oh, yeah, okay.
No explanation.
Quickly, let's just address this. A couple episodes ago, a missing black arachnia,
Yep.
right? So she like pieced out in the middle of a fight, and I'm like, oh, what's she gonna get up to? Apparently, just come back 2 episodes later.
Yeah. Apparently nothing.
No
and
questions asked.
Then, and then she just like missed it.
She
It's just
invented
there.
something. Yeah, apparently she invented this like sonic resonator that they're all huddled around.
I know. I like how Waspinator is like trying to. So Waspinator has this like thing that looks like a big like fork, essentially.
Like a tuning fork,
Yeah.
kind of. Yeah, an electrical tuning rod.
Yeah, and he's like trying to wedge it into this like crack in this cavern that they're in, and he's having a hard time with it.
Yeah, and he
And
says
he's all like, and then he gives up, and he's all like, bomb fits. See?
what does he say?
He says bomb fits. See?
Oh, bomb fits. See, yeah, I rewatched that, and I'm like, what is he saying?
And he like, as he says it, he like throws his like little
Wasp
bug legs
arms up.
Yeah.
And Black Arachnia she says it's not a bomb, right?
Yeah, that it's a sonic resonator that will, when properly placed, will punch a hole in the rock straight underneath to the maximal base.
Yeah, that's some like Nikola Tesla shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like find the resonant frequency to like break apart the ground beneath the maximal ship.
So,
And yeah, she says, why does Waspinator gets like pissy? Remember? And he like goes,
yeah,
"Oh, you're not my real mom," and he like flies away. Yeah, he just like leaves. And then Pterosaur and Black Arachnia are getting a little bit of a huff contest.
Pterosaur transforms and is all like, Megatron said dig, so start digging to Black Arachnia. Also
She transforms.
Yeah, she transforms. And
she's got her back to him as she's talking because she's like kind of making a move for her gun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she like whips her gun around and points it at him. And what does she say?
She says, I'm the brains of this operation, not the brawn.
Not the brawn, yeah.
And so what does Pterosaur do? He shrugs and then fucking eye lasers
he shrugs
rock.
and eye lasers the rock. And it works. It like widens the hole.
Yeah.
Yeah. When he could have just easily shrugged and then just like eye lasered Black Arachnia. But
yeah, but she had her gun pointed right at him. If he had eye lasered her, he could have risked her pulling the trigger and him getting shot. Also, given the fact that these characters given the fact that these characters have restoration chambers that can literally bring them back from the dead, like
actually, yeah,
actually,
Megatron was in pieces.
Megatron was dead last week.
Yeah, it showed the light of his eyes fade out. His head was not connected to his limbs.
Yeah, he was dead, and
Also,
they just brought him back. So it's like,
Pterosaur was fine when he didn't have his head. His head was intact and his body was intact, but his head was ripped off. And he was still able to fumble around and pick his head up. And he was still able to speak. And he was still able to like see out of his eyes.
yeah. So I guess what
So
I'm saying is like there are no real stakes for these characters.
maybe it hurts just like a lot. You know, you don't want to be ripped in chunks. We hear them cry out in pain all the time. So
True.
why was I made to feel pain?
Yeah, I don't know. It's again, it's one of those things that that I'm only really noticing because I am an adult in his 30s and not an 11-year-old watching this anymore.
What a time to be alive. The 90s as a child.
Oh yes. Yeah, so we're in the ship and we see a little like model of
Oh yeah, it's like a 3D.
it's like a little 3D model of Megatron in beast form.
Yeah, the console is like shooting like lasers and making like a little like translucent 3D model of Megatron in his beast form.
Yeah.
I think, are there sounds? Is he even going like roar?
He is, yeah. So basically this like little model is demonstrating a security system that Rhinox is developing, and he mentions something along the lines of the first wave of the attack will be like this kind of binding laser essentially thing that will basically like tie them up through lasers.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact term. This show likes to make up terms and then never revisit those terms ever again.
It sure does.
Plasma coils, let's say.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, and it shows these like yellow energy like ropes like
yeah.
wrap around the little digi Megatron's like head and legs, and like he like falls over, trips and falls over.
Yeah. Well, before he falls over, another gun shoots him to like knock him out, and then
Oh right,
this like little shield thing goes over him.
right, yeah.
And so this security system that Rhinox is developing is called Sentinel.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I find
And it
interesting,
kind of that implies that it has its own little AI.
yes, what I find kind of interesting watching this show in production order is because I'm noticing there is like a little bit of a loose narrative through line. So like
Yes,
a couple of weeks ago, the Predacons got their ass kicked because they had like no like close range defense system. And
exactly.
and so the following episode, we see Megatron is developing autocannons that are designed to attack Maximals.
Yeah.
And Cheetor spots that. And so now this week, the Maximals are developing a auto defense system of their own at their base.
A non-lethal one.
A non-lethal one.
Which Dinobot has a problem with.
Which Dinobot, I also have a problem with it. But it's not the same.
You and Dinobot love death.
It's not the same problem that Dinobot has with it, but I will bring it up when we get there.
Oh, okay. There's a part where Rhinox is so smug. He like like chuckles and like wags his head and
Oh yeah. Optimus says he says like impressive or something like that. You've done good work. And Rhinox is like,
you said you do a better impression.
He's like, you said make the brace impregnable.
And he kind of like has this smug face, and he kind of like
he like
wags
tilts his head. Yeah, he tilts his head back and forth as he says it. He's like so proud of himself.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah, so Cheetor is all like, oh, Predacon signature, and Optimus brings up a 3D model on the console, and he's like, "Oh, it's Waspinator." That's the third Predacon we've seen in that area in the past few days. Something must be going on there. I'm gonna go check it out. And then he's like, "Cheetor, see if you can get in touch with Tigatron."
And I'm like, ooh.
Tigatron,
I love
another
Tigatron.
another character. Am I wrong? We haven't seen him in a while either.
Yeah, we just saw him when we first met him, when he woke up and decided to live in the wilderness.
Oh, right, yeah. So he's been, and that was episode 5, I think. Yeah, so he's been gone for
At
a
4
while.
episodes.
Yeah, so Tigatron and Black Arachnia just mysteriously reappear in this episode.
Yeah. And I think, do we cut to like Waspinator talking to himself?
Yep, he's flying around in the air.
I love
talking.
his little rant.
His little ranty monologue.
His little like ranty monologue where he's like, "Oh, Waspinator, true leader of the Predacons, Megatron will see one day." And I think at one point he even is like, "Oh, Waspinator is the greatest." And I'm just like, "Aw, sweet summer child."
So precious.
So precious.
Um,
Nobody is encouraging of him, and he's walked over and he's just like talking to himself, talking. Oh, I think he says he's the greatest or something, and I'm like,
yeah.
Waspinator.
So
And it cuts from his like little monologue down into the jungle where by the way, he's just flying in circles. Listeners, like
quite
he's
literally just flying in circles.
and they saw that back at the Axalon.
Because we see Tigatron on the ground in beast form, just sitting as a cat does, looking up in the air, and his head is turning back and forth, just like a cat's head when
Yeah,
they're
he's following him.
Yeah, when they're watching like if you ever watch a real cat just like stare at a fly buzzing around the room or something like that.
They're animating them really well in their beast mode. I've
Yeah,
noticed.
and
there's a twig that snaps. Yeah, and Tigatron like whips his head around and he says to Optimus, "Not many can sneak up on me like that." And he says, "You should try hanging around Rat Trap sometime if you can stand him." And I'm like, "Dude, ouch." Dude.
and Optimus is like, how long's he been at that? Tigatron says something along the lines of like, long enough to make my head spin, or
Yep, long enough to make my head spin or my head hurt. And he's like, "Should we take him out?" And Optimus goes, let me, what does he say? Like frazzle him or let me tail him and
let me like rile him up, see where he runs to.
yeah, see where he runs, and you follow us on land. And so he maximizes, and this is really weird. Like this is the second time in like 15 seconds it's shown Optimus be super stealthy. I don't know how, but he flies up. By the way, his jets make sound.
Yeah.
Optimus's jets sound like a jetpack. And he comes up behind Waspinator, and Waspinator's like, "Oh, I am great. I'll show everyone. One day, Megatron will see that I am true leader of Predacon." And it just kind of shows like a gorilla, like this huge, meaty gorilla, palm go forward and like tap him on the back, and he goes, "Oh," and he turns around, and Optimus like tilts his head, and he gives a dainty like. Do you remember he like daintily waves at him with his fingers? So Waspinator is surprised and he whips around, and Optimus like waves his fingers at him like Waspinator yells.
The music even does this like little
"Oh yeah,
piano thing.
Yeah, it does a little piano thing when he waves like it waggles his fingers at him.
Yeah.
And Waspinator like yells, "Optimus Primal," and just like takes off, doesn't transform, just tries to outrun Jetpack Optimus.
Yeah.
It probably cuts back to the Axalon at this point.
Yeah, we cut back to the Maximal base. Dinobot is basically all like,
Oh, he's growling. It shows a shot of his face, and he goes, "Ah, useless."
yeah, and he's all like, danglers, stun guns.
Yeah, and he pushes away from the console, and he
Yeah.
bumps into like Rhinox, and Rhinox is like, "Oh." And which is interesting. This is when I was like, "Hey, wait a second. Rhinox has all these sharp teeth on the front of him because it's like the underside of presumably his rhinoceros mouth.
Yeah.
But when he's in his beast mode, he doesn't have sharp teeth.
Oh, really?
Yeah."
Never noticed that.
And yeah, I was watching this. I'm like, wait a second. Those are all sharp teeth on his like mouth chest plate. But Rhinox doesn't have sharp teeth when he's in his rhinoceros form. So it's like spiky
Huh.
front armor. Yeah, I just noticed that. I was like, wait a second. He doesn't have sharp teeth when he's. But Dinobot in both forms, he's got lots of like pointy, sharp teeth.
Fashion over function?
Or is it functional? Because when people back up into you and make you go, oh, maybe it pokes them in the back.
Hey, that could be useful in the in the world today.
Yeah.
The way things are. Like, stay away from me, poke.
Well, he can't chest bump anybody, unfortunately.
Damn.
Yeah, so he's like, "Oh, this is useless. We need to fight." No, when they're in their battle mode, when Predacons are in their battle mode, we have to respond with lethal measures. I think he says something like that.
A lethal threat demands
That's it.
lethal response.
What does Rhinox reply? I can't quite remember, but he kind of, "That's not how us Maximals do things," or something along those lines. And Rat Trap gets involved in the conversation too.
Yeah, Dinobot just says something along the lines of like, these toys will not contain a Predacon threat or something like that.
Yeah.
And then he goes to walk away, and Rat Trap's all like, "Oh, is that so, eh? Try this on for size."
So? Yeah. Is that so? Try this on for size. Chop a face.
Something like that, yeah.
And he types a bunch of stuff into the console, presumably manually controlling one of Sentinel's guns.
Yeah.
I assume.
And so he targets Dinobot and shoots a rope laser at him and bounds him up.
A few rope lasers, or is it one long one? I'm not quite sure. And he turns around in horror right before these things wrap around him.
Yeah.
And these energy ropes shoot out of the gun. They're yellow energy ropes. They shoot out of the gun. They lasso his legs.
Yeah.
And his shoulders, and then like his arms to his torso. And he goes, "Rah!" And he like falls over.
Yeah. And
so Rhinox is
Rat Trap's all laughing and smirking to himself. He's like, "Oh, maybe Preds ain't as lethal as they think." And then and then we hear Dinobot be all like, "Whoa!"
Yeah, he kind of like Super Saiyans out of the.
Yeah, we cut back to him, and he's just like fucking rage. I love when Dinobot just absolutely fucking loses it. I gotta say.
When he just starts screaming and being feral.
Yeah, when he's just like so like incredibly pissed off.
Yeah, so he goes Super Saiyan 2 and he like yells his way and he just busts
right out of it.
Yeah, we both use you could tell we grew up in the same age because we both say he busts out.
Yeah.
So he busts out of these yellow ropes and they just disintegrate. Like he gets out in like 5 seconds.
I remember when the first time I watched this, or not the first time, but like the first time in the past week when I watched this episode, which I think I watched it back on Monday or Tuesday, when Dinobot just broke free just through sheer strength, just like yelling in rage. I was like, "Oh, it's dope." Myself.
Hey, when you have one card, you play it every game.
Yeah.
Or when you only have a hammer.
Or a drill rapier, which is what Dinobot has. So when he breaks,
charges at Rat Trap with his drill rapier.
Yeah, and he turns the drill rapier over to a downward stabbing.
Yeah, like a stabbing motion rather than like a jousting or a fencing motion.
he charges at Rat Trap, and then Rat Trap moves over.
Well,
And
first he actually like pushes Rhinox out of the way.
yeah, well,
Yeah, he
that's
like
what I
pushes him
was
out.
getting at. Yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry. He
So
like, which I'm surprised because Rat Trap's 1/5 the size of Rhinox, like actually.
yeah.
So I was like, oh, how did he do that? He
Uh,
bravely pushes Rhinox out of the way, as if Rhinox was ever in the target of Dinobot's wrath.
I know. I found that kind of strange. It's like Dinobot's not going for Rhinox, man. He's coming for you.
No, yeah.
Like, if anything, you should be running away.
Yeah, and after pushing Rhinox out of the way, I think he just kind of like action rolls out of the way or ducks or something.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, Dinobot stabs through the console. Most of his drill rapier slams right into it, obviously breaking
Completely.
it.
Yeah, it's
And we
like
even see yellow electricity come out of it.
it's like hilt deep.
Yeah, we see a yellow electricity come out, and he yells in pain as it shocks him, and then it
Yeah.
stops for a moment, and you're like, oh, I guess that's not so bad. And then after a brief pause, it electrocutes him again, even harder, exploding and knocking him like away and slamming him into like a corner of the room.
And then his head just like does this continuous like 360 twirl.
Oh, that's right. His head spins.
Yeah.
Has it shown his head spinning before?
Yes, in Beast Wars Part 2, when him and Optimus were fighting on the bridge, and Optimus like
That's right.
punched him in the face with
The hilt of his saber.
the hilt of his like back saber thing. His head spun around a couple of times, and then his jaw looked like it kind of separated.
Yeah, so apparently their heads can come off and spin when it's humorous.
Only for comedic effect, though.
And Rhinox is, I wish he had said what. Immediately there's like an error with Sentinel.
Yeah. Alarms are going off, and we're like on full red alert, and a male voice is like, Sentinel active, acquiring targets, and it starts showing 3D models of
Yeah.
of all of the Maximals, and Rat Trap's like, oh, well, Rhinox, turn it off.
Yeah, he just says, well, Rhinox, turn it off. And he says, I can't. The console's scrapped thanks to you and Dinobot.
And then he's like,
what about the friend or foe recognition?
Yeah, Rhinox is like, Sentinel is active and thinks we're targets. We got to get out of here. And
Right.
Rat Trap's like, oh, well, what about that friend or foe program? He's like, that's what I was working on when you pulled this stunt.
Yeah. Oh, because earlier, Optimus asks Rhinox, I wanted to bring this up. He says, how soon till it's ready? And Rhinox says, oh, about 3 or 4 megacycles. And Optimus says, good. Well, how long is a megacycle?
I've always thought it was an hour.
I thought a cycle was an hour. Or is a cycle like 15 minutes?
I think a cycle is a minute. Or okay, I don't know, because so skipping ahead a little bit, later on there's a scene involving Tigatron and Black Arachnia, and she's all like, oh, it's gonna blow in 15 cycles, and then they have a battle.
She says 15 cycles?
Yeah.
Oh, that makes it seem like it's short.
Like seconds, because like the battle they have is
Oh,
short.
I didn't
And
catch that.
and he's all like, oh, well, then allow me to return it. Spoilers for later, for like 10 minutes later in
For
the
like
episode.
10 minutes later. Oh, I didn't realize she said cycles. Interesting.
Yeah.
So that way we can measure them. Yeah, so maybe cycles are minutes, or maybe the show
I think
different writers.
I think the actual answer is that they're just not consistent about this kind of thing.
That they want to make up new words for things that have no definition.
Yeah.
And there are different
Like,
writers for different episodes.
Like a Giga Bummer.
Giga Bummer.
Which is a thing Cheetor says in this episode that made me laugh. But he doesn't say it yet. Because what is going on right now is an alarm is going off in the Maximal base.
Oh, Rhinox says, yeah, we need to get out. of
And
here.
he's like,
Cheetor, help
Cheetor,
Dinobot.
Cheetor, help Dinobot.
Cheetor kneels next to Dinobot, and I'm like, Dinobot is twice his mass. Like, I'm like, are you gonna help him? That would be like me
How are you going
helping.
to help him?
Hal, thank you. That would be like, it'd be like, Cal, help Kane from the WWE up from the ground. I can tell you, I am not helping a 300-pound, 7-foot tall man off of the ground. I'm in shape, but he's getting up on his own accord.
Yeah.
So it shows him kneeling down, and I'm like, what's Cheetor gonna do here? Because I don't know.
Maybe he's just going to provide moral support.
Pat him on the shoulder and be like, come on, buddy, we got to get out of here.
Yeah, I
We gotta
mean,
make like a cat and shake a tail. And it says, what does Rhinox say? We have to get out of here. And Rat Trap is like, no can do.
you got to you got to make like a raptor and bring the velocity.
Oh, nice. It's time to make like a raptor and bring the velocity. Did you just think about that?
I did, yeah. That's why I kind of went silent. I was like, there's got to be some kind of joke in there. There's got to.
You need to write for 1996 Beast Wars. Just walk up on the set and go, yo, and like open up like a little book with Cheetor quips, and they'll like, you're hired.
I just gotta, I gotta walk up onto the set. I gotta go back in time and walk up.
I say
onto
the set as if
I gotta walk into the writer's room.
Yeah,
like before
where everyone's like drinking whiskey and smoking.
Before this episode was written, and just walk in with shades and like a backward baseball cap, trying to pretend I'm like a youth in 1996, and just be like, yo, giga bummer, guys.
You're hired. When can you start? Yeah, so Rat Trap's like, after Rhinox orders them out, he says, like, no can do. I'm the one that caused this mess, so I have to fix it. And he changes into his beast mode as the ship's like firing little plasma shots at everyone.
Yeah.
And he
actually
takes off.
What Rat Trap says is, I'm the one who turned this thing on. Now I've got to be the one who turns it off.
Yeah. He enters like a little vent.
Yeah.
On the bridge, like takes like a little grating off and crawls inside. And this is interesting. As it shows Rat Trap, I can't quite remember what he says to himself.
He's like, man, I almost sound like Optimus Pinhead back there.
Yes, that's what he says. And I'm like, man, they're digging at each other today, behind each other's back. I almost sounded like Optimus Pinhead back there. And then as he's going down the tunnel, it does a really weird transition. And we now the camera view pulls out of Rhinox's mouth as he's yelling, Rat Trap! Like really loudly and dramatically.
And then he's getting shot at, and then he just does this awkward, like, exit stage right.
Yeah, he kind of just notices that the gun's been shooting at him. Rhinox is very wide, by the way, everyone. Like, he's huge. He barely fits down the hallways of the Axalon. And so he's like, huh? And he just like looks up and notices the turrets like trying to shoot at him, and kind of just
like
turns down the hallway.
He just like slightly turns to his right and then just zips away.
Yeah, that's right. He does just slip off the corner of the screen. Again, we brought this up. Where's the only place we've seen them come and go on the ship? The elevator, that little platform. And where is it? It's on the bridge. But it shows them run down the hallways away from the bridge. So I like how they've never really shown us where this alternative, presumably there's some sort of cargo bay in the back of the ship, like a ramp. But I mean, it never shows us that. No. And the next time we see them, they're in front of the ship. They're in front of the ship. And I'm like, hey, you guys didn't go down the elevator. And there's it's kind of precariously over like a canyon, the Axalon. So how did they get in front of the ship? Is there like a little rock bridge, like a reused asset of that like rocky bridge? I think there is. Yeah, right in front of the Axalon. So presumably they they crossed that.
Yeah, that rock bridge that got blown up on that fateful day during Beast Wars Part 2. And then its snowy
Its
cousin
clone, yeah, its
was
snowy cousin was powdered away.
powdered away during Fallen Comrades.
Yeah, I can't wait for them to see some sort of like rock bridge in like a jungle or near a waterfall or something. It'll happen, I'm sure. Do we show
We
them at
agree.
the front of the Axalon yet, or do
No, we
we cut to
transitioned.
the Predacons? Oh no, Tigatron.
We transitioned to Tigatron running on the side of a mountain, chasing
He's running
Waspinator.
along. Yeah, he's running along the side. Oh, yeah, he's chasing Waspinator, and Optimus is in the air chasing Waspinator, and they're like beside a cliff, like
Yeah.
cliffside. Yeah, and Waspinator like takes a tight corner because Optimus is right behind him. Tigatron's a little ways in the back, and he just disappears. Like Waspinator's gone, and Optimus is following him with his jets, and he just comes straight face to face with a wall, has a surprised look, and then like pulls up to dodge the wall. And he kind of like looks up, and he's approaching the top of the cliff. It kind of juts out a little bit, like it comes out farther than the cliff wall, and he tries to pull away from it. It clips him. He yells out in incredible pain, and he starts flipping. But then he immediately stabilizes himself, and he's fine. And I'm like, oh, I guess it didn't hurt that much, huh?
But then he starts shorting out.
Yeah, so he has to land, and he transforms into his gorilla form right as he's touching down midair,
Yeah.
which is cool. I was gonna say that actually looks really cool. He's transforming just as he's touching, like right before he touches the ground. So he kind of lands, bends his knees, and lands in his like gorilla form. And I'm like, that was cool. I like that.
We've been talking about the animators showing off for the past couple of weeks, and
I'm
like
glad you noticed that.
I feel like this is another example of that.
They do a really good job at like how Optimus stands and like how he like composes himself and his facial animation.
Yeah.
And he lands right in front of Tigatron. And I think he says, "Oh, I lost him. He disappeared into thin air." And Tigatron like looks out over the horizon, and it's just like jungle. There's a river, there's mountains, crummy PlayStation 1 era like graphics, like jungle way down beneath them. So they're very high up. And I think Tigatron says, I can.
These textures are way better than PS1 graphics.
That's fair, actually.
It's from that era, but like the quality is much higher.
Yeah, I wasn't being fair. It's you could tell it's a jungle. And Tigatron says,
actually I would say the CGI in this show looks more like in-game from like early PS2 games.
PS2. Yeah, I could see that. And which again ahead of its time, I would argue.
I mean, they were they were I remember Sony hyping up, as they called it, Toy Story graphics in games, which definitely the PS2 did definitely not do. The fucking PS3 didn't even do that.
No. Yeah, so Optimus transformed midair and kind of like lands in his gorilla form, and he says, "I lost him. He just disappeared into thin air." And Tigatron surveys the scene, and he goes, "He's close. I can still smell him."
Right.
And then Optimus, he suddenly has this like little chip thing on his arm, and he gets like a little it's not a message from any of the Maximals. It's a message from the ship, I think. Is it like Sentinel like messaging him?
Oh yeah.
Because it's like a male computerized voice, and it says, one remaining, or an enemy has like infiltrated the ship. Sentinel online or something like that. And I'm like, oh, cool. He gets like pinged when the Sentinel system comes online. That's handy.
Yeah, and Optimus is like, Sentinel, and Tigatron's like, who is Sentinel?
Who is Sentinel?
And he's like, oh, it's our new defense system, but it shouldn't be online yet. And Tigatron's like, perhaps it would be better if you return to base.
Yes, perhaps it would. And And Optimus is like, "You're right. I'll send somebody. I'll send reinforcements immediately." And Tigatron kind of like gives like a low growl, and he
Yeah, he
goes,
gets mad. Seemingly gets kind of
"Yeah." He
mad.
kind of gets like mad, and he goes, "I need no assistance. I prefer to prowl alone."
Yeah.
And it cuts to Optimus's gorilla face, and he kind of has this like amused like happy face, and he says, "Understood," or something along those lines.
He
Tigatron,
Yeah,
yeah.
Tigatron leaves. Optimus transforms, and his internal
Oh, yeah.
computer is
His little
like,
computer says something to him.
yeah, he's like, Energon dampener is at 15%. Recommend transforming back to beast mode.
Yeah,
And
that's interesting.
Optimus is like, oh
I'll have to
well,
chance it.
I'll have to I'll have to chance it. And he
That's
was like,
interesting.
jets on, maximum burn.
Maximum burn. That is interesting because that means even that short time that he was transformed as a gorilla, it did kind of like, I guess because they have a certain kind of amount of time they can be in their robot forms before they
Yeah,
have to go in beast forms. Even that little bit kind of like recharged him enough to give him like, I don't know, at least 15%. And he's like, "I'll have to chance it." Which at first I'm like, well, why does it matter? You'll just start short circuiting and change anyway. But this is Optimus and he's flying through the air. So that line makes sense because he can't transform in the air, or if he starts to
yeah.
short circuit, if he doesn't get to the ground quick, he'll just kind of like what's it called again when they like energon buildups and they like surge? They
Uh,
just kind of
en-
like start
Energon,
spasming.
Energon surge.
Yeah, they start like spasming, and there's nothing they could do at that point.
I
Unless you're getting jacked from the energon juice.
I kind of wonder like when exactly they start shorting out. Is it like when
It's
they're
never actually shown. They've
no, and
always transformed in time.
it's never well, I just mean like when they actually start shorting out. It's like how low do their energon dampeners need to be? Like is it like 10%?
Right.
When they're at 10%, that's when they start shorting out?
Yeah, and
I don't
I
know.
don't think it's ever shown anybody like refuse to change and for them to
Go into stasis lock?
go into stasis lock. Yeah, I don't think they've shown that yet.
Not yet.
No. So he
I
maximum
can't think of a
burns and he pieces
specific
out.
instance, but I'm sure it happens at some point in the show.
Hey, well, yeah, we'll find out if it does or it doesn't. I think before we go anywhere else, it kind of follows Tigatron, or do we go back to somewhere else?
We go back to the Maximal base and see the Maximals fleeing
They're right,
from the front of the base, even though they did not
right.
exit.
Thank you.
Even though they did not exit from the
The bridge.
elevator platform on the
No,
bridge.
and there is like a waterfall or like a river or a canyon, but separating the front of their ship
Yeah.
and the bulk of it, the rest of it. So it's kind of funny for me, and I'm like, hold up, guys, you didn't exit that way. Come on. But I mean, again, I'm sure 11-year-old me did not notice.
I can definitely say 11-year-old me did not notice.
I
So
think the shields go up.
yeah, Sentinel puts a shield around the ship.
Yeah, it's like a green like energy barrier.
Yeah, and Rhinox and Cheetor exchange some dialogue about Rat Trap being stuck on the ship still, and then Dinobot is all like, "It seems you've built a better mousetrap."
That's right. Yeah, it seems you've built a better mousetrap.
Yeah.
And it zooms in on like Rhinox looking kind of disturbed. Do we get some rat trap time?
Yeah, so we zoom in to the ship to a
View of the camera?
yeah,
The
yeah,
surveillance camera?
footage. And we
Yeah,
spot
it's like
Rat
black
Trap.
and white and staticky as it's like scanning.
Yeah, we spot Rat Trap in a vent.
That's all. I love this. I love this so much. So the camera actually has like a little boop boop boop, and it like puts a little red square in one of the hallway ceilings.
Yeah.
And so it's detected the intruder Rat Trap. And Rat Trap's like looking down out of a vent, and this liquid comes around the corner. It's like a weird energy field liquid that it's bright blue, and it comes around the corner down the hallway. Do you remember what Rat Trap calls it? He's
I
like,
don't.
no friction liquid. And he goes, Rhinox, no friction liquid? Really? And he, the grate in the vent, he like tosses it onto the liquid and it floats, by the way, even though it's metal.
Zero friction.
Zero friction liquid.
And then he's like, this stuff is strictly for amateurs. Come on, Rhinox.
Come on, Rhinox. And apparently this is a very dense liquid because he drops the metal, like looks like a steel like grate, onto the liquid and it floats, and then he jumps down and lands on it, and like 90s cool guy surf music starts playing.
Yeah. And Rat Trap lands on it and
He
starts
even
straight
kind of,
up
like,
surf.
He has his
Starts
hands
surf.
out, like he's like balancing, and he even like switches his like stance, like his feet, like back and forth.
Yeah.
What quip does he say? Or does he just surf for a while until that net appears?
He's like, this ain't a security system. It's a gym just for guys like me.
It's a gym just for guys like me. And this yellow like volleyball net, energy volleyball net appears.
Yeah. And he just jumps over it.
He
does
jumps over like a Bart Simpson move. The
does
grate
like somersaults.
Does somersaults. The grate just goes underneath the net in the liquid.
Yeah.
And he lands on the other side onto the solid hallway, which curiously doesn't have any of the zero friction liquid.
Maybe the net was catching it.
But it shows it on the other side of the net. It's like, well, this is as far as this liquid will go. Nobody will get past this net.
This is as far as we go, boys.
And then it cuts back to Sentinel looking at him and is like through one of the security cameras, the black and white security cameras, and it shows him scurry away.
Well, Sentinel starts shooting at him.
I forgot the fireballs.
Yeah.
There are fireballs.
So it shoots at him a few times. And he does this whole like, and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, like basically doing
1
like
and 2 and 3 and feel the
like,
boing.
Yeah, basically doing like aerobics
listeners.
type
For
moves.
some reason, there's a vent and it's shooting fireballs in a straight line at him, but they're like a little bit to the left and a little bit to the right, and he's like doing like aerobics and going and 1 and 2 and 3 and dodge.
Feel the boing.
Feel the boing as he like these fireballs like go right over top of him.
And it even like zooms in on his butt as he like shakes his tail.
He's like shaking his like tail to like the side and like having fun. You'll have to do better than that, Sentinel. This is child's play. And and then it cuts to one of Sentinel's black and white cameras
as he's running away.
It shows him running down a hall like a rat, like a very like rat, like his haunches like bouncing, and he goes around the corner and then he peeks his head from around the corner and waves at the camera.
And then it does that thing again.
Yeah.
That very like Looney Tunes type thing.
It was a very Looney Tunes sound effect, like high-pitched little like piano keys.
Yeah. So from there we cut to Tigatron walking around.
Sniffing the air.
And
he says, the trail ends here. Even though Waspinator wasn't walking.
But yeah, I didn't even think of that.
Waspinator was flying and he's sniffing the ground and he's like, his trail ends here. And I'm like, hold up. That's not how things in the air, their smells don't linger. There's wind. But anyways, his trail ends here. And he turns and he looks at the wall and he like carefully.
When we were 11.
He like very carefully reaches out with one of his big like kitty paws and he like touches the wall and it kind of like phases through and he goes, huh? And he kind of like slowly walks and goes through this hologram like wall. It looks just like the rest of the wall, but it ripples as he goes through like liquid. Even though it's a projector.
And it makes this like kind of amusing, like whoop, 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 wobbly sound.
Yeah, Stargate-ish sound. And then he kind of turns and he looks at straight up. It's just a projector, and he says, "Ah, a hollow projector. Clever."
Yeah.
And I'm like, hold up. I thought this bro had amnesia, right? Remember, like something happened, like his. Oh
Well, he's
no, my
been
partner pointed out his memory wasn't fried. His personality circuit was wiped. Right?
he
Remember, there's like memory chips and personality circuits and emotion chips, and there's different parts of their personality. Yeah. So I guess technically he could know what he has his memories as a maximal.
he does also in the episode that introduced him, he talked about like wanting to live in the wild while his circuits repaired themselves.
You're right. So maybe
And
he's
he's been gone for 4 weeks now, presumably.
yeah, he's
Uh,
been gone for weeks or months,
so
however long is.
so he's been gone for a month now and hasn't been seen since. But so presumably he's kind of got more of a head on his shoulders about things at this point.
Yeah, he's because it's shown us already very early, in fact, that they have systems in place, or maybe nanobot, like little tiny nanobots. I'm not sure, but like they can self-repair.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can heal,
Well, yeah,
including mental trauma.
well, yeah, if only. Yeah, when they go into beast mode, it's been established already that their beast forms conduct internal repairs.
I think Beast Wars Part 2 like directly told us that.
Yeah.
Rhinox was like, how are the internal, or how's the damage? And Optimus replies like, oh, my internal repairs are almost complete.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it makes sense that maybe they can fix their heads too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he stops and he kind of gets down, like very much like a predatory cat would, and he kind of growls because there's a light coming around the corner. He's in a cave now, and this is so weird. It's shown them a couple times in this episode, but like I think it's kind of genius. This little tiny robotic like insect with like a head that looks like a light bulb comes around the corner, like
Yeah,
just like a weird robot insect light.
yeah, it's pretty rad. Like,
It's yeah, I like that. It's clever. And then he just
imagine
kind of,
can you imagine having one of those going camping?
yeah, if they responded to like certain orders, like, hey, just walk around like in a radius of 20 feet around the camp,
Yeah.
and it just kind of like illuminated the area, that'd be rad.
Or
And
it's
so
like if you got to go to the outhouse, like it just follows, like doesn't follow you, but like it walks ahead of you, like
oh yeah, like,
6
hey,
feet maybe.
head to the outpost and stay 6 feet in front of me.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. I
Yeah.
mean, a flashlight is probably cheaper.
But not
But
nearly as
not
cool.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not cool. And this little flashlight bug walks by, and he just observes it. And then a smaller one is following the bigger one, as if like they're real insects. Like that was like the mama flashlight bug, and it has a baby flashlight bug. And I was like, huh,
So yeah,
okay.
so these flashlight bug bots have reproductive capabilities.
Or they just made them different sizes, so they could get, or they're different sizes so they can get into different sized crevices. I don't know. So we and Tigatron just observes them calmly and goes, huh. And he walks deeper, and
We cut back from here. We cut back to the Maximal base, and
yes,
the Maximals are all still in robot form, and
they're shooting their
they're
base
they're shooting at the shield the Sentinel has put up.
like
Cheetor's
full
firing.
force.
Cheetor's firing his plasma brain gun thingy.
Yeah, it has like intestines or brains as like it's like skin around the base of the gun, and I've always thought that was kind of, even as a kid, I was like, ugh, I don't like that.
I actually thought about it, and on the toy, the gun is the stomach of the figure when he's in beast form.
Oh, it tucks into his like
Yeah,
abdomen.
yeah,
Makes sense. It's his intestines.
yeah. Makes sense. It's kind of
It's where he
weird.
stores his gun.
It's a weird visual, and it's like, why
Yeah,
is
because
that
some of the toys
necessary?
came out. Well, the toy, like you said, the show was made after like the toy line came out.
Yeah, like the I think the toys first launched either in late 95 or early 96, and the
Oh,
show
they weren't that far away then.
yeah, and the show launched in September 96.
Oh,
So,
that was pretty close. So they're all firing. Dinobot is eye lasering, shooting
yep.
his green eye lasers. Is Rhinox firing like a plasma pistol, or is he shooting his like gat?
He's using his chain gun.
He's using his little chain gun with the little twirly spiral blades on it.
Yeah.
It's not doing anything.
Yeah, he's like yeah, and he's even like, hold it, like we can't blast our way through. But then they start shorting out from the energon,
And
which
then Cheetor,
Cheetor helpfully points out that the energon fields are making us short out. We got to
yeah, I'm like, we
transform.
don't need to. We know Cheetor. Like we're almost 10 episodes in. Oh
Yeah.
man, but every once in a while you got to remind the kids that they can't stay robots forever.
Yeah, if this is, a kid's first episode, it
Yeah, a
kind of
kid
tells
might be
them
like,
what's going on.
why do they have to change?
Yeah.
So yeah, oh, the energon field, we got to transform. And I think
On the
he says
subject of them transforming, I don't know if I've pointed this out in the podcast yet, but I will
Rhinox
say
clapping.
no, I will say, the notion of them having beast forms somehow protecting them from energon fields, energon radiation, it's kind of silly. But
What?
what
How
but what
dare
I
you?
but what I like about it is that even though that doesn't seem terribly realistic or believable, what I do like is that it necessitates them having an alternate form on this planet. And
Rather than just blending in to trick humans.
yes, and it also gives them a reason to have to transform.
Exactly, and that is a very good plot mechanic. They
Yeah,
can't just stay robots forever and fight forever. And a lot of battles, even the one-sided ones, they end early because they're like, "Oh no, we have to transform."
yeah,
So it's kind of a very good plot mechanic to prevent one side from just outgunning and destroying the other, or either side from engaging for too long.
yeah,
So it means you got to make your time outside of your base, or at least the Axalon. In the Axalon, it shows them chilling in their robot form all the time. And as
yeah,
we've
yeah,
discussed before, we're pretty sure that there's energon dampeners in the ship that mean they can stay in their robot form, or in the very least, be in their robot form for an extended period.
yeah. So long story short, I think their beast forms, them having beast forms, is due to the energon radiation on the planet. I think it's a neat plot device.
It's scientifically sound too. I do like that plot device, and watching this as an adult, I'm like, that's actually really smart. That's
Yeah.
clever. I'm gonna rip that off for one of my ideas in the future, I'm sure. Oh, we can't. We have to pull back. The Kryptonian exposure is like too high. I don't know. Imagine a villain, like a vampirish like villain, who could only be in the sun so long before having to like transform into like, I don't know, like a bat or an animal. But while when it's nighttime, or while he's in his like true form, he was like more powerful than like many other superheroes. Except he just like sucks when the sun's out.
And not sucks as in he sucks blood. He sucks as in, he's just kind of
Sometimes I accidentally make puns, and other people have to point them out to me. This happens very frequently. Somebody will like nudge my shoulder and go, "Haha, good one," and I go, "Yeah," and I just like stare off into oblivion, trying to think of like what joke I accidentally made.
Yeah, that hilarious joke that I just made was pretty funny, hey?
I'm accidentally
Yeah.
funnier, and more clever by accident than I ever am on purpose.
I feel like unless you're a professional comedian, who their trade is to workshop jokes essentially until they are funny. I feel like unless you're that, accidental humor is much more amusing than trying to be funny.
Okay, that's fair. My favorite is sometimes it'll be like a day later or hours later, and I'll be like, "Oh, that's why Brian laughed at that joke. I didn't even realize I accidentally made a pun." Like it'll just completely go over my head.
And then you go to him and you're like, "Hey, remember when I made that joke?" And he's
I
like,
just got
"No."
it. Or he's like,
he's
"Oh,
like,
kind
"No."
of." No. No. And I'm like, "Well, I just got it. High five."
And he's like, okay. High five, man.
Whatever you say.
You do you.
I was going to say that, but I was hoping you would. Oh, does Optimus show up yet at the ship, or does that?
Yeah, he shows up just after they transform, and he does his whole. He's shorting out as well, and he does his whole like landing transforming thing again.
They're showing off. They're like, "Hey, we just figured out how to like smoothly like make him land in gorilla form.
Yeah,
Let's do it again."
Yeah,
Kind
let's
of
do
like
it
with
again.
the falling off of cliffs thing they did last
And
episode.
let's do it again, but this time let's mirror the character model so it looks like he's doing it from the other side.
Let's do it again, but mirror. He's doing it the other way. His legs are spinning the other way.
Yeah.
So he lands, and
And he's all like basically like, "Oh, what's going on? I got an alert from Sentinel that there's an intruder."
right.
Uh, and Rhinox is
This-
like, "Oh, the intruder is Rat Trap. He's trapped inside." And Cheetor's like, "Oh, well, if we don't figure out how to get him out, then he's toast."
He's gonna be cat food. I see. We can write for Cheetor. Oh, Rhinox had tried at one point to communicate to Rat Trap on the inside, and he says it's no use. Sentinel scrambling our comms. I forgot about that little part.
Yeah.
Yeah, just inconsequential. But when we jump, I think we jump back down to Tigatron in the cave, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Well, I'm going to jump back into the cave with Tigatron.
I'm looking at video right now. To see where we are. Where we actually are is Rat Trap crawling through a Jeffries tube, essentially.
Oh, we do get some Rat Trap action first.
Yeah, so he's crawling through a Jeffries tube, leaps out of it, and grabs onto a ladder because he sees down at the bottom of this maintenance chute type thing is more of that like energy water stuff that he went surfing on earlier.
Actually, it's not, because a little ways into this elevator shaft scene, he says it's like a dampening field, like it's like an energy like wave that's like coming up or something. Especially as it rises past him when he goes into that little side vent. It's not water, it's just like a weird like undulating like energy field.
Right.
But I don't care. I can barely remember the scene order. It honestly, the editors do a good job of jumping back and forth between like different scenes in the show. So when we're recollecting it, unless we do have like an episode in the background, it's kind of easy to focus on, oh, now we're going to go to Tigatron, right? So even though Tigatron scenes are like 3 scenes, it all feels very smooth and like run together. Same as like Rat Trap. You could,
Right.
it'd almost be easier if we just talked about like one scene at a time, but that breaks the meanwhile flow of the show, right?
Meanwhile, on Beasties.
Meanwhile, on Beasties. Yeah, that's right. He's crawling, and he looks down. There's like a blue energy field coming up, and he looks up, and there's just straight up a crossbow with like paintball, like round, like balls. And he says, he actually knows what they're called. He says, really, like Rhinox, or really Sentinel? You're gonna send like it's either like a stasis field or a dampening field, and I cannot remember. It's he has a sci-fi name for the crossbow that shoots balls. And as he's crawling up, the crossbow thing shoots him, and it explodes. Like it hits him right like head on and explodes and knocks his ass all the way down or halfway down the elevator shaft. He transforms mid-fall. This is actually kind of cool.
Yeah, he transforms mid-fall, flips around, and then straight up does a Sam Fisher.
Yes. Like one leg out in front, one leg behind, and it like he's a transformer. He's made of metal, and like sparks happen as he like slows and stops his like descent. And he kind of like shrugs his shoulders and he's like, "Really, Sentinel? You should know you're no match for me." It's funny that he's talking to Sentinel, but he's talking to the the viewer. And he's like, what does he say? He's like, "I'm made for infiltration and..." Shoot, what does he say here? He says, "I'm made for like infiltration, spying, and demolitions." And
like,
this
okay,
part
so I'm looking at it. I'm watching the video now with closed caption. He's like, "Keep it up, Sentinel. You don't stand a chance.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm a stealth fighter, a master marksman, and a demolitions expert."
Yes, and a demolitions expert. I forgot about the master marksman, expert marksman. And he opens up one of his like iconic little like forearm devices, and he pulls out this like little square C4 looking kind of explosives, and he like winds up and just tosses it up into the vent where this gun is aiming at him. Huge fiery explosion. By the way, the fire looks real. Like the FX team did a great job on the fire. So he just blows up part of the ship. Thanks, I guess. And I paused it.
Also, I will point out here that there is a little bit of continuity going on, because we established in last week's episode that Rat Trap is indeed a demolitions guy, and that's why Optimus took him to the floating island to blow it up.
Yep.
Or not floating island, floating mountain. See, even I did it. It's not a floating island, floating mountain.
It makes sense, but I paused it here, and I turned to my partner and I was like, how is that better than just using his gun? I'm like, not only did that take longer, you blew up part of the ship, bro. And then after blowing that up and being like smug with himself, 3 more crossbow machines pop out of the walls and aim at him.
Yeah.
And start firing at him, and he lets go mid-fall down this like little like ladder shaft. He pulls out his gun and shoots all 3. So yes, he is a master marksman as well. Why didn't you just shoot the first one? Your gun would have already been out. But whatever. Sometimes when you do a mission, when you're playing Hitman or Metal Gear Solid, you want to use the things you brought. I understand. You have an explosive, you want to use it. Anyways, mid-fall, he shoots these other 3 crossbows out of the air and then catches the ladder and says something like, "Not today, Sentinel," and like crawls into this side vent again.
Yeah.
And the camera's looking at him front. He's in his man, I'm bumbling my words. He's in his rat form. And
he's in his robot form.
He's in his same thing, really.
He's in his ratbot form.
He's in his rat bot form, and the camera can look behind him, and that like dampening field goes up behind him, but doesn't like enter the vent he's in. And then he
Which I found
insults.
kind of weird.
Yeah, because I thought it was liquid as well, so it
But
wasn't the
also,
same as
like,
the.
if
But
you
also,
look behind Rat Trap, look at the texture of the wall inside the vent.
it's like
It's actually,
rippling.
yeah, it's actually like kind of morphed it in a way where
Yeah, like there's a light coming from the dampening field underneath it that's different than the light above it, and it makes it look like it. What did you say? Warped the wall or something?
yeah, and it honestly almost it almost has like a texture to it that kind of looks like molten lava, but is blue.
Yes, like you can see the underside of it. Yeah, and it looks like blue molten. It. You know what it probably is? It's the skin or the animation effect for the lava in the dark side on the
Yeah.
Predacon ship, but just colored
Oh,
blue.
yeah, yeah.
That's what it seems like.
Probably. They're
So
like
the
they're
blue
like,
energy
well, we got
lava.
they're like, we got this asset, so let's just use that.
Why not? Yeah. So he dodges the blue lava and he goes scuttling down this little vent now.
And now we cut back to Tigatron.
That is right. And Tigatron, he sees all three of the Predacons by this big crack in the wall, and he gets the drop on him, and he kind of like goes behind a pillar. And I love this. I can't remember what they're arguing about. There's Waspinator's like, no, we must deal with Optimus first.
Also, I find it kind of funny in this scene that now Black Arachnia is the one fucking with the device, her invention, as she calls
Oh,
it.
is she the one messing with it?
Yeah, now she's the one messing with it. Which I just
Oh, that's right. It
find
shows her kind
funny.
of trying to wedge it.
Yeah.
And I love this because we have already talked about this. It's like, oh, when you maximize or terrorize, if you say it quietly, does that mean that maybe you transform quietly? Apparently, you can just straight up say,
Stealth mode.
you could just
Yeah.
say like, Tigatron maximize stealth mode. So there's a stealth mode. They've never shown that. They've just shown Cheetor being like quiet, being like Cheetor maximize, and I think it's shown someone else be quiet too. But they've never said stealth mode, which I find really amusing. You got to give.
Also, what I find amusing here is when Tigatron is sneaking around.
This is great.
From pillar to pillar in this like quiet like
a Looney Tune
sprint.
You can hear his like metal legs moving.
And just like the dialogue that's going on in the background between the Predacons is very much like how to describe it. It's very much like
petty bullshit.
It's very much like, oh, we are talking about things. We are talking about things that will be heard.
We're talking about things out loud. Oh, this isn't a bomb, you idiot. This is right. Like they're narrating all the information that Tigatron needs to know about what they're doing.
And Pterosaur is just like, oh, Optimus will never find us here. And Black Arachnia is like, oh, and if he does, he will be too late. Ha ha ha.
It's very villain monologue.
But like, it's also kind of nothing dialogue.
It's very like filler.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's
it's background noise.
Yeah, it just cracked me up earlier when I was watching it.
And he's like sprinting in between like the pillars, the stalagmites, like in the cave, hiding, and it's like, okay, they either see you or you don't. The hiding behind the pillar thing is so hilarious because he's a 7-foot tall white like robot holding a gun, running between these like pillars that barely conceal his presence.
But
and then
he is bright white. There is nothing stealth about
he's like Arctic blue, like aqua and white.
Yeah.
Like the metal parts of him are like a metallic kind of like blue.
I mean, if he's up north in the snowy plains,
That's what I
then
was thinking of. Yeah.
sure, he would blend in, but he's in a fucking cave.
So
A
he's just running
surprisingly well-lit cave, I might add.
full of spider lights,
Yeah.
bug lights, which it actually shows a few of them around the crevice that they're widening. So they've been doing that this whole time. And instead of just getting the drop on them, because like heaven forbid you just shoot them without them knowing, he jumps out from cover and like says some quip to alert them to his presence and then shoots them.
Yeah, because Black Arachnia is all like, oh, the emitter is ready. In 15 cycles, we'll be inside the maximal base.
Right.
And he's like, the only place you three are going is the slag heap.
Yeah, it's like, dude, just shoot them next time. So he says this, right? And he
Yeah.
immediately starts shooting. But they've had about 3 seconds to realize someone was there. He misses all of them because they
All of them.
all
And
of them.
he's fired several shots at all three
He
of
goes
them, and
boom,
they
boom,
all
boom, boom, boom,
miss.
boom. He fires like 9 shots. They all miss. And here's the thing: they slowly scamper away, like pterosaur,
Yeah.
like awkwardly, like flies away in his pterodactyl form. Black Arachnia very slowly skitters up the wall where the crevice is.
Yeah.
And Waspinator, same thing. He just kind of looks surprised and then like hovers away a little bit. And I'm like, well, I guess you're really good at stealth, but not great at shooting. Doesn't hit a single one of them. He lost his surprise round. Man.
So they all terrorize.
Yeah, Pterosaur, again, we've talked about this like jokingly and not jokingly. He says, Predacons, terrorize! And so I guess that's the voice. Only one of them needs to say the voice line, and they all transform. Just a little thing I noticed.
We've seen that a few times now.
Yeah, as long as somebody says it, or if you're Rat Trap, you just never need to say it.
Yeah.
He hasn't when he's been in the base. When he was like falling and he like transformed midair, I don't think he said it.
No, he didn't.
Predacons terrorize, and as they're like transforming, maybe he just shot at them to get them to scatter, because as soon as they're like transforming, he's like sprinting. He does this awesome ninja flip, and he lands at the wall, like gripping that like energy. What was it? A resonance device, a resonance bomb or something. The energy key, yeah. And he like rips it out of the wall and just pieces out. They're like shooting at him and he's just like running like later. He's not even trying to. Oh yes, every single time Black Arachnia terrorizes, she has to do like this like ballerina pose. She's very like action posy. And the one you just sent me is after they take chase to him, they come around the corner and they're at the entrance of the little cavern. And the 2 flyers are hovering with their guns out, and Black Arachnia like kind of like ballerina like poses with like on one leg, like with one knee out. She's always doing that, eh? She's always like dramatically like posing.
Yeah, like
and they look around.
The screenshot that I sent you, like could very easily be the cover of like a Beast Wars VHS tape.
Very easily be turned into some sort of rule based on where her hands are pointing. Anyways.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Just put some robot dick in there and anyways, there are 11-year-olds that listen to it, damn it.
So next week on Too Much Energon, we delve into fanfic.
I'm sure there's some decent of Black Arachnia in there. But anyways, they're looking around and Tigatron's like gone. He like stealthed out of there. And they yell some Predacon like bullshit. And I think again, for the second time, he gives away his position by talking for Tigatron, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he says a thing.
Yeah, he says like up here, I'm just gonna pretend that he says up here, morons. And they all like dramatically look up.
Look
and he
up,
fires
masses.
Look up, dumbasses. No, yes. Look up
Oh,
and
okay. So they're straight up like they're in after they do their 1996 hip hop
action
album
pose.
pose. Black Arachnia is like, oh, where did he go? And Tigatron, who is right above them, straight up says, right here, Predacon.
Right here, Predacon. Oh, and by the way, speaking of Sam Fisher, he's Sam Fishering up in the
He is.
ceiling.
He totally is.
When we say that, we mean like, legs splayed apart, like holding himself up with like immense crazy. This is the second time we've mentioned Sam Fisher has amazing leg strength, by the way. So Tigatron's doing a Sam Fisher like in the area above them, and he fires 2 shots, and he like all of a sudden he's an expert marksman, by the way. I don't know how this is possible, because he shoots the guns right out of Pterosaur and Waspinator's hands.
Yeah.
And then he turns the gun to Black Arachnia, who's pointing her gun at him, but he doesn't shoot, which I find interesting.
Because reasons.
Because she's got a awesome rack.
Yeah. Probably something along those lines.
He's a chivalrous gentleman.
He
And
is.
she doesn't shoot back either. If you have it up, what's the quip she says to him?
I actually remembered it, but I do have it up. She's like, "You can't win, cat. The emitter will explode and take you with it." And he's like, "In that case, allow me to return it."
Allow me to return it. And he whips it like a javelin.
Yeah, he throws it straight down and
piercing the ground.
Yeah. Sorry, the closed caption for this episode is like right after this moment, it's like in brackets, dramatic rock music playing.
That would be like 80% of the show. Yeah. Dramatic rock music playing. And he throws it down. It's glowing. I thought it was funny. My partner had said to me, wouldn't it be funny if she was just lying? Because remember, Waspinator earlier was like, the bomb is set. And she's like, it's not a bomb, you idiot. It's like a sonic resonance, sonic emitter. Yeah. So that was my impression, that it would like shake something.
But apparently now it's a bomb. Because
and he throws it.
So he throws it straight down, but jumping ahead like 30 seconds or so, it creates a crater out front of the maximal base. Yes, upwards. Exactly. That's what I was getting at. So it should have exploded downward.
Because the point that was sticking into the crevice earlier was the point that's now sticking straight down.
Yeah.
So also, why did the sonic emitter, was it active? Was it unstable? Why is it going to explode? Did she already set it?
She did set it, yes.
Yeah, so, but if it was supposed to shoot up. Anyways, that's a good catch, actually. I never even thought about that. My logic had went out the window. My logic circuits had gone out the window. The garbage chute that shoots pterosaurs. But yeah, she says something about
your satisfaction chip. It was overriding your logic circuits.
Yes, my satisfaction chip was overriding my logic circuits, which happens every time Black Arachnia is on screen. Really,
I would like to when we see the explosion happen out front of the maximal base.
He throws it. It starts pulsating. They all just take off. Black Arachnia like Batman's away.
Yep.
With her like grappling gun hook. The others fly away, and it shows Tigatron like attempting to run away and escape the blast. But as Christopher said, it cuts back to the other Maximals in front of the Axalon.
Yep. Because despite the emitter like sending a sonic blast. Sending a sonic blast downward, it explodes upward and
Yeah.
creates this giant crater in front of the maximal base.
Yeah, the way it explodes is very much like a subterranean explosion because like it goes upwards a little bit and then the ground collapses. More so
Yeah.
than just exploding like rock like outwards, which I visually I thought that was really cool. So I think we cut back to Rat Trap after the explosion.
Not quite. Cheetor is like, jumping gyros, what's that?
Jumping gyros, right?
And Optimus is like, let's find out. And he says battle mode.
Oh, thank you. I was going to bring this up. So this is the second mode type. Yeah, and he says battle mode. He doesn't say maximize.
Yeah.
He just yells battle mode and they all transform into their robot forms. And I'm like, hold up. And I paused it and like turned to my partner and I'm like, there's a battle mode now. And she was like, you have to give little boys and girls when they're playing with the little toys, you have to give them things to like yell out when they're like, like playing with their toys and role playing different things. And I'm like, you know what? Fair. Continuing onwards.
One thing I noticed in this scene was when Dinobot transforms, he uses the same transformation animation that he always does, but his left hand still emerges as though he's holding his like tail helicopter thingy.
I did notice that, yeah.
So like so like it looks like he's still holding that, but he isn't.
Yeah, he's just miming that he's holding it. And again, they probably reuse the same. They just move the 3D models around and then make them do their little transformations, right? I don't know how it works, but yeah, he's never had his whirly tail copter this entire episode.
Yeah.
So that seems optional, and he seems to realize now that that's kind of useless. It's never helped him. It's looked cool. He's threatened Rat Trap indoors with it.
It's only ever been a thing because it was part of the original toy.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it's never helped him.
No.
In the show.
And from what I recall, he uses it less and less as the show goes on.
Well, sometimes you realize how awkward and weird something is, and you go, you know what? I'm fine with my drill rapier. Sometimes I'll use it like a dagger. Other times I'll use it like a sword.
Other times I'll use it like a prison shiv.
Why not? A spinning drill shiv. And it would be cool if he could control like its length, like an extendo, because it's made out of his like the spine of his tail. I like to think.
Yeah, I think that's the
idea
visual that they're going for.
Yeah, and so they all go enter battle mode, which apparently is a thing, and they all like draw their guns and point it at the rubble, and the rubble moves a little bit, and then there's a white tiger there.
Well, they charge forward toward the rubble.
Yeah,
and then that happens.
and
Optimus is like, "Oh,
he's like,
what happened?"
Well, he's like Tigatron in like a really cute like way. Yeah, and he says, "What happened?" And he says, "Oh, it's a long and what does he say? Dirty story."
It's a long and very ugly story.
A very ugly story.
And Optimus is like, "Well, I want to hear it."
Well, I want to hear it.
But first.
Which,
like, I kind of appreciate that Optimus says that because it's a very like commander type thing to say.
Yeah.
It's like,
I'll listen to you, man.
Well, no, it's just like someone under his command is like, oh, this like explosion that just happened is a really long and kind of shitty story. And Optimus is like, well, regardless, I want to hear it.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Good to know what the Predacons were up to.
But right now, we have other things going on.
I think it's interesting that I almost wonder if it was like a test mission, but it's like, oh, you're going to like make some sort of sonic emitter device? Okay, that's cool. Take my 2 idiots with you. Take the 2 people most likely to leave because they don't like being bossed around or butt heads with you over who's in charge. Pterosaur, Waspinator, accompany her. And I'm like, really? Just those 3? Seems like an important mission, but I guess not.
It's like, send Scorponok.
At least Scorponok will make sure it gets attempts to make sure it gets done. And he's gotten the drop on Optimus and Dinobot before. He's gotten the drop on Cheetor before. He's shown to be at least somewhat more competent than any of the others. Maybe Tarantulas is on equal footing with them. But no,
I
the
would say
rest of the
Tarantulas
Predacons
more
are
so.
somewhere else. Yeah?
Yeah, we actually don't even see any of them in this
Yeah,
episode.
we don't see anyone else, just those 3 Predacons.
Yeah, no
Do we get
Megatron in this
the last rat trap in the ship?
We do, yeah.
He enters some sort of like core of the ship, doesn't he? It's got like an energon like pool, much like a lot of like sci-fi ships have kind of like a danger zone around their core.
Yeah, especially in the 90s.
Right? It's not just me. Yeah, there's like a center console with like presumably like the master computer or the central AI or something.
Yeah, and it usually has like some kind of moat around it.
A little like energy moat that's dangerous. Star Wars too did that.
Which I can't even remember what movie it was, but some movie in the 90s explained this away that the moat was coolant
coolant for the core.
For the computer core, which that actually makes a degree of sense.
Fair enough. Or the core of the engine, it just powers everything. So fair enough.
Yeah.
Seems legit. And anyways, there's a gun in here, and it immediately shoots him and catches him unawares, but he kind of just flies a few feet and kind of he slides a bit and his head goes over the edge where the energy moat is, and a little piece of metal, like a handle or something that exploded alongside him, falls in, and it shows it disintegrate.
So I will point out what my issue with Sentinel was.
Please do.
Earlier.
It can't hit anything and its accuracy is shit.
No, it's not that. It's that Dinobot, like, they make a big fuss about how non-lethal Sentinel is, to the point that Dinobot actually makes like a big deal about it. But Sentinel has straight up been trying to kill Rat Trap.
It's been escalating his weaponry. At first it was like 0 gravity fluid and like an energy net. Then it was fireballs. Then it was straight up like crossbow bombs and like a dampening field,
and
which he implies would shut him down.
And Rhinox and Cheetor seem actively concerned that Sentinel is going to kill Rat Trap, even though we established at the beginning of this episode that Sentinel is designed to non-lethally incapacitate foes, much to Dinobot's chagrin.
That was the whole point of Dinobot going, yeah, useless.
Yes, exactly. So
that's a very good point, actually. Kind of a huge
that is a
not
big
plot hole, but continuity error, right? Or does is that also fall under plot hole?
Yeah, because like generally a plot hole refers to where there is a failure in logic in plot of a movie or TV show.
Like
a failure
something contradicts itself or something like that.
Yeah, like a failure in the story's own internal logic.
Yeah, like an inconsistency in its explanation. Yeah. That's a plot hole then. And that's a good point. It's slowly escalating itself, because it did shoot him earlier, but it like knocked him off of the ladder. But I mean, it was an explosion. Like it hit him.
Yeah.
And the dampening field would presumably like put him in cryo or something. But like now it's shooting at him with like a plasma gun, like a little turret, which, by the way, is the most... Man, Sentinel is so inaccurate. Like, what is going on here? And it's shooting, and instead of it shooting at him, it's just continuously shooting the ground, coming closer and closer to Rat Trap as he's crawling backwards in his rat form, like on his back, like scrambling away from the getting closer and closer shot. I'm like, Sentinel, aim at him first. It has like an auto fire mode where it just keeps shooting, and then it enters this very like Indiana Jones like jumps up and grabs a cable and swings around like the little
he's,
like
like,
core
swinging
room.
around.
He's swinging around and he like lands and it shoots the railing that he lands on and it shows him go over the edge and fall. And then but he caught the railing with his tail.
I was gonna say he saved himself with his little rat tail.
And he crawls up and now he's like, "Oh right, Sentinel, you made me mad," or something. And while he's like crawling down on his like haunches, Sentinel's missing shots. They're like going over his head, going right beside him, hitting the ground, just like stormtrooper shooting at him.
Yeah.
And he dodges one by transforming. He kind of like transforms and the shot was going to hit him where his rat head was, but because he transformed like vertically, it like missed him. And I'm like, oh, that was kind of cool. And he just like nonchalantly, like cheekily, like dodges these shots as he walks forward, to like the central computer, right? And yes, it's locked though. There's a shutdown command, but it's locked.
Yeah, so he goes up to this panel and he's like, "Oh, I need to find that friend or foe command."
Yes, and he starts just pressing buttons.
And he's like, "Oh, where did Rhinox put it?" But like right in front of Radtrap is what is clearly a panel that is designed to open because there is a split right in the middle of it that has the Maximal logo on it.
Yes, and he's tapping things and red lights are appearing, like he's inputting the wrong password.
Yeah, and then he's like, "Oh, where did Rhinox put it?" And then he smashes his fist down on this Maximal symbol
on this like panel, and the lights all turn green.
Lo and behold, this panel opens up and there's just a big red button there.
Yeah, so it keeps showing these like red lights, like he's inputting the wrong password or something, and he's like, where did Rhinox put it? And he pulls like a Fonzie, like a Fonz, and he just like slams it. I'm surprised he didn't go, "Hey!" He just slams it. The lights turn green, and like Christopher said, the panel opens up, and there's a big ass like red like emergency shutdown button. And I'm like, okay, hold up. Like, what's the point of having that there if you can just like smack it and open it? Like, if a Predacon was infiltrating this, you think one of the things they wouldn't attempt to do was just punch the panel
and press the giant red button.
So, my God, I almost forgot about the giant death laser. So he goes to press the button.
Yeah.
And there's actually a giant death laser.
Yeah, and it's all like Shatterfield active.
Is that what it says?
Yeah, it says Shatterfield.
Shatterfield? Basically, a death laser is aiming at him. And it looks cool. It looks like this big satellite thing. It takes up like a huge chunk of the room, by the way. It's just coming down from the ceiling. And it's moving like a creature following him.
I think Shatterfield's a pretty dope name for a death ray.
I think Shatterfield is a pretty standard name for a pony from My Little Pony. Shatterfield.
The bra fits.
And he's kind of like aiming at him, and it kind of like reacts almost like an animal, like, oh, don't go towards that button. And he's like going towards it, and then he doesn't. And instead of just pressing the button, which like, dude, just press the button, he like dramatically has a standoff with this laser, and he like goes prone, like just falls to the ground prone, and dodges this death laser that shoots right over top of him.
Okay, so I just like scanned over the video, and it's even funnier than that because he's standing there. He had his hand stretched out to press the button.
Yeah, it's right there, right beside him.
Yeah, it's right beside him. Then he pulls his hand down, and he kind of pauses for a second, and then he starts like slowly pulling his left hand out to press the button again.
And the laser's like, oh,
and then he just stops.
Yeah, but then it stops.
But then it shoots anyway. It's a really. I would suggest watching the the video of just like that moment because it's kind of an amusing shot.
Yeah, he's on a standoff with this laser, and I'm like, dude, you stop the laser if you just press the button. What are you doing?
Yeah.
But like, Rat Trap has to like show that he's superior to like these systems. Have you noticed that? Like, this whole thing is just kind of like him cheekily being like, I'm better than you. I'm a master infiltrator.
He has spent
So
a surprising amount of time shit talking this
this AI.
this presumably like non-self-aware
Wait, it's
defense
not
system.
even an AI because it barely responds. Yeah. It's just
Yeah.
like a defense system. And you're right. He spent the entire episode shit talking this thing. And I'm sure it doesn't have any like emotional like chips or logic circuits. Well, it probably has logic circuits. So its feelings aren't going to be hurt.
Or
But
conscience centers or
yeah, it's probably not sentient.
yeah.
And he dodges it, but the death laser that he just dodges goes over top of him and like slices up again. Like, Rat Trap's just destroying the whole fucking ship while he's having fun, like tangoing against Sentinel. And it shoots a bunch of lasers. A beam hilariously falls down and like pins Rat Trap on the ground. And then the laser, the death reel, what did you call it again? Just keep calling it death laser.
Shatterfield.
Shatterfield. It moves around the room and goes behind Rat Trap. Like, moves all the way around the room, goes behind Rat Trap, and then it's like, prepare to be terminated, bitch. In like a smooth, like robotic, like male voice. It doesn't quite say that. It literally says something like prepare to die or preparing to terminate or something. Do you have the script up? Or is that just what it says? It doesn't even matter. It just says prepare to, like, straight up. It just says preparing for termination. And I'm like, okay, so this clearly is lethal.
Yeah, and
it is literally telling him that it is going to kill him.
Prepare for termination.
It does say that?
No, I'm just saying that.
Oh, that's a quote from didn't that happen twice in the episode where Rat Trap had to infiltrate?
Yeah.
And we were like, how do we prepare for that again?
It has, and we have made jokes about it in the past.
So Sentinel's like, prepare for termination, bitch. And it dramatically, oh, by the way, he's like reaching for it. He's almost there. And then he pulls his hand away, pushes at the ground, and turns around to look at the death laser, and then continues trying to reach for it. As for some reason, as this is charging up, getting ready to shoot him, it's taking like 3 times as long to charge up.
Yeah. For dramatic effect.
For dramatic effect. And then, just before it's about to fire, the screen goes white. And it cuts away from him. And it shows all the Maximals outside the base.
And the shields drop.
The shields drop. And then I think it's Rhinox that's like, oh no.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, what do you mean, oh no?
He's like, Sentinel wouldn't drop the shield if an intruder inside was still active.
And then kind of like the sad, like that sad kind of like somber music track that often plays in the episodes cuts in.
That like
do
whoa,
do.
Whoa,
yeah.
whoa.
Yeah.
And
and
Cheetor is just like, Rat Trap gone? No way. I don't believe it.
And like, then
I like how like,
go ahead.
Everyone's first thought is like, oh, Rat Trap's just dead. Not that, oh, maybe he figured something out.
So, like Christopher had said earlier, listeners, like, wait a second. Why is there immediate presumption that he's fucking dead when they made this to be non-lethal?
Yeah.
So they, instead of being like, he's dead. Because we've seen like Megatron literally in chunks and pieces, and he's come back. But apparently Sentinel is so lethal that it just fucking like rips the soul right out of you. Which is odd for a non-lethal defense grid. But anyways, and then Christopher, they all like give the shittiest eulogy I've ever seen in my entire life. They all shit talk him except like except for Cheetor, and I'm like, fuck you guys watching this. And, like every single one of them. I think it opens with Optimus being go ahead.
I was Optimus says he was a difficult Maximal to deal with, at times impossible, but he was one of the crew.
Thanks. Then it cuts to Dinobot,
I
and he says,
I actually
ahead.
like what Dinobot says. Dinobot says, "I won't disgrace his memory with lies. He was a stinking omnivorous pestilence."
Wow. Omnivorous. Interesting that you would point out his diet.
I know that that's what I was watching the episode earlier rewatching it with my partner earlier.
As
And
if that's
I
worthy of
made a point of like pointing out the fact that he's like omnivorous pestilence.
as if being omnivorous is an accurate point of ridicule.
I mean, I
Because he's a
guess
velociraptor, he's a
yeah,
carnivore.
I guess for a velociraptor maybe.
What does he think of herbivores then? Jesus. So he's omnivorous pestilence.
Delicious.
And
He just eats them.
yeah, hey, look out, Rhinox.
He just straight up
And
like, watch out, vegans. Dinobot's in town.
Dinobot's in town. What does he think of herbivores? They're delicious. Sometimes when you're so tired, your like deep core, like fight or flight reflex kicks in, and you think of funnier things as you're slowly dying inside. How does he end it with? He's like,
Believe me, I
but
already died like 6 hours ago. This is just like
afterlife, Christopher.
Yeah, this is zombie podcasting right now.
How does he end Dinobot? How does he end his shitty eulogy? He's like, but still,
in some perverse way, I will miss him.
He says in some perverse way?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. That's a lot to unravel. In some perverse way, I will miss him. And then it cuts to
even Rhinox is like,
Jesus Christ.
He's like, sure,
Fuck.
He smelled bad. He was a rat, but he was my best friend.
Thanks. What?
And then weirdly enough, Tigatron, who is
he nuzzles Rhinox's hand.
Yeah, Tigatron, who is in beast form, Rhinox just like reaches over and just pets Tigatron.
Yeah, so I actually rewound this and watched it. So what actually happens is very subtly, Tigatron, right after Rhinox says his shitty eulogy, man, fuck them. What a terrible eulogy. I met Cheetor doesn't say anything, by the way, and I imagine he's in shock because he's like, wow, what do these guys say behind my back? Fuck. But if you look at Tigatron right after Rhinox speaks, he very subtly nuzzles Rhinox's hand, and Rhinox looks down and like pets Tigatron, and I'm like, huh, interesting. So some of them show affection, like physical.
I'm not sure if like I
should
find that moment weird or touching.
Yeah, like imagine we were at a funeral, right? And or somebody had just died and we're trying to say something positive about them. And I came up beside you and I was like, what's this, Uwu? And I like nuzzled
and then I just start petting you, like caressing your hair. Like it would be fucking weird.
Thank you. It's a little weird.
But then like
apparently it's not weird for these guys.
Then, like if you like strip that weirdness away from it, it's like
it's touching.
Like they're trying to comfort one another.
Maybe it's the equivalent of like wrapping your arm around somebody's shoulder, or because we don't transform into a beast mode, so maybe it's the equivalent of like giving someone a bro hug or something.
Could be.
And I think it's touching. I hate everything they say. Like, oh, Jesus Christ, guys.
Yeah.
Anyways, the elevator from the Axalon starts to come. Oh, sorry, no.
Yeah, we get
like
a
Looney
weird,
Tunes.
We get a weird fake out.
we get a weird an obvious shitty fake out. The screen from the corners goes black, like a circle, slowly getting smaller and smaller, but it stops, and the music changes, and it zooms back out, and then it cuts to the elevator.
The
and it
return of
starts-
the elevator platform.
which only Rat Trap is using, and he's holding his tail up, like as if it's a tissue.
Yeah.
And he's standing up with one hand against like the railing of the little platform, and he's like, "Oh boo, oh boo hoo!"
Don't stop now. You motorheads are killing me.
Yeah, don't stop now. You motorheads are killing me. And
Cheetor is like, Rat Trap? How did you avoid getting scrapped? Well, it was no oil bath, but let's face it. Ain't a defense system ever made that I can't get around. Right, Sentinel? And
affirmative.
Sentinel is just like, acknowledged.
Or acknowledged, yes. Right,
And Rat Trap's
Sentinel?
like, yeah, you just gotta know how to talk to him.
You
And
just
then
gotta
they all-
know how to talk to him.
And then they all start laughing.
I remember Optimus like guffawing, like ah ha 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 ha. Wait, how come half the ship's destroyed?
That darn Rat Trap.
Yeah, and everybody laughs, and everything turned out PG-13. What a weird like little fake out thing.
Yeah.
But like, man, I actually really like this episode. A lot is like happening, but like, wow, like shittiest eulogy in the fucking world ever. Like, I like how they open with like two things that they find shitty about him before saying something like, "But he was my best friend. He was a piece of shit who ate garbage and smelled like it too, but he was my best friend. He was annoying, impossible at times. Some would even say I hate his fucking guts, but he was one of us." Jesus Christ, you guys.
I mean,
And Cheetor's listening in horror as they're mag talking Rat Trap.
And meanwhile, Cheetor is just like sitting there or standing there in silence, just being all like, "Well, actually, I kind of liked him, but
you guys, whatever.
Maybe, I'm kind of reading the room now, and maybe I shouldn't say that out loud."
Right? Because he doesn't say anything, and he's just kind of like staring at them, and I'm like, man, don't make Cheetor say something shitty. I'll be furious. And they don't. He says nothing. Well, at the beginning, he's like, "No, I don't believe it."
In utter disbelief.
That's the second time Optimus like talks shit behind his back too.
I doubt this is the last time Rat Trap will be ridiculed by others.
He took that way better than I would have. I would have come down the elevator like with my gun pointed out, and I'll be like, "Say that again, mother."
Yeah, so that was the 9th episode in production order, A Better Mousetrap. Do you have any closing statements about the episode?
The Maximals need to give better eulogies. Like, I don't even think the Predacons would be that shitty. Jesus, that's it. I'm fired up about that.
You're all hot about that one, eh?
Also, like, apparently,
God, I just said A. Holy shit, I must.
I said A earlier in the show, and I immediately noticed, and I was like, I won't say anything.
And you immediately regretted it.
I regret nothing.
We will be back next week with the 10th episode in production order, The Probe.
The Probe.
Thank you very much to everyone who listened. Be sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and, wherever you're listening to this currently. I'm sure you can subscribe to us from there. Like our Facebook page, facebook.com/toomuchenergon. Send us an email at toomuchenergon@outlook.com. I'm exhausted, so we're going to get out of here. I've been one of your hosts, Christopher Siege.
I'm your other host, NeoCal.
And until next week, Beast Mode.
Beast Mode.